an outline application with only the principle of development to be considered, plus the location of the access to the site. The scale, appearance and layout will be considered at a later reserved matters. The proposal includes footpath and cycle links and public open space. There are 3 cycle links to the adjacent Persimmon site, 2 to the south and 1 to the east. The site is approximately 300 kilometres from the new town centre. The site is on the corner of Higham Lane and the A5 Watling Street, and to the side and rear of White House Cottage, and access to the north of White House Cottage. To the south and east of the site and adjoining to it is the now approved Persimmon site. This is this area that we're referring to here. The Persimmon site is approved for 453 houses. Further to the east is the Calendar Farm development, which has been approved by committee subject to the signing of a 106 agreement for up to 850 dwellings. Across the road, on the other side of Higham Lane, is the Top Farm planning application, which is still ongoing. The site is currently agricultural land, with most of the boundaries having hedgerows. Natural England are the statutory advisor in relation to the protection of agricultural land and have not objected to the loss of this land. The land itself, according to Natural England, is not the highest quality of agricultural land that you can have. The site is considered sustainable as it's close to both existing and proposed residential areas, with both existing and proposed new facilities. The Borough does not currently have a 5-year land supply, which, similarly to the sustainability, weighs heavily in favour of development in national policy guidance. The land is currently designated as ENV3 countryside in the current local plan, which is a designation where development can be considered where there is a demonstrable need, which clearly there is in this instance. The land is also directly bounded by the proposed strategic housing development of HSG1 in the emerging borough plan. The land was originally designated as a landscape buffer to the A5 in the emerging borough plan. However, at examination, whilst the planning inspector did not disagree with this, he considered the size of the borough, the buffer, was not justified. This land buffer has therefore been deleted within the modifications to the emerging borough plan and is due to be consulted on shortly. Notwithstanding this, the site can be designed so that plain open space still provides a landscape buffer to the A5, which is similar to the approved Persimmon and Calendar Farm developments. The applicant is keen to forward this site for development as soon as possible, and has asked that the standard expiration time on the decision notice is reduced, as condition 2 on your agenda. Therefore, in relation to the site's sustainability, housing land supply, deliverability, the need and the land designation, the site is considered acceptable and in keeping with local and national guidance. In terms of residential amenity, the master plan suggests that the site can accommodate the number of houses requested and still comply with the borough's residential design guide. In terms of highway safety, Highways England and County Highways have both been involved during the application process and have scrutinised the submitted transport assessment, and both have no objection subject to conditions and a 106 legal agreement. Due to other proposed development within the area, County Highways has received an agreement for funding from the Department for Transport to support capacity in the area. This includes the removal of the former railway bridge over the A47 Hinkley Road and to support capacity enhancements at the A47 Hinkley Road, the Longshoot and Eastborough Way roundabout junctions. Where funding has not been provided by national government, it is proposed to be funded via the new developments, this being one of them. The charge for each development, or for each dwelling, is currently levied at £3,305 per dwelling, equating to, on this site, £661,000 for this application. that is if all 200 houses are applied for at reserve matters. The monies will be utilised for the A47 Hinkley Road, Higham Lane and A444 Leicester Road. The total fee requested for this part of the development is £500,000 and a further £161,000 for works to the A47 Hinkley Road, Higham Lane. Both these amounts have been agreed with the developer. A further £150,000 has been requested and agreed to improve the bus frequency within the area. Bus stop provision will also need to be agreed via either a Section 38 or a Section 278 with the Highways Authority. Highways have requested a payment towards cycling infrastructure of £89,500. Highways acknowledge and recognise that this request is not technically SIL compliant as it's some distance from the site and therefore not directly related to the site. The applicant has recognised it's not SIL compliant but nonetheless has agreed to pay this amount. It is therefore considered that highway safety, travel and transportation can be made acceptable via a legal agreement including 106 contributions and conditions. Highways have also requested a 106 payment towards the provision of sustainable welcome packs on the occupation of each dwelling. However, similarly to other developments, it is considered that this can be provided by a condition. In terms of flooding and drainage, the proposed built form of the site is to be in flood zone 1, categorised as a low risk of fluvial and tidal flooding, and the Environment Agency and County Flood Risk Team consider that sustainable drainage can be provided via attenuation ponds within the site. It's therefore considered that flooding and drainage is acceptable via condition. In relation to open space, protected species, biodiversity and ecology, the development proposes green infrastructure and a naturally equipped play area for younger children and contributions towards other play and open space provision in the area, for either the fee of just over £357,000 if the council adopt the land, or £209,000 if the council do not adopt the open space and maintenance is provided instead by a private company through the developer, either of which will be agreed by the legal agreement. The site has a number of hedgerows and trees which provide ecological value at the local level. According to the tree report, none of the existing trees are to be removed as part of the development, and there are no significant trees along the access. The proposal aims to retain as many of the hedgerows as possible and to enhance them where necessary. The report states that there is unlikely to be great crested newts on the site, but due to the proximity of newly built ponds on the Persimmon site, which are here, provision is to be made for great crested newts within the site and also for other wildlife. This is ultimately to promote a more sustainable population of newts, other amphibians and reptiles and other colonies of wildlife in the area by encouraging migration between all the adjoining sites. Wildlife corridors are also to be provided to mirror the Persimmon site and to make all the adjoining sites work coherently in terms of ecology and biodiversity. The open space is to be improved with wildflower meadows, etc., and the hedgerows, as I say, will be enhanced and will provide habitat and foraging. Nesting birds and foraging commuting bats were also found along with badger activity within the area. Bird and bat bricks are proposed to retain and encourage bats and birds. National policy states there should be net gains in biodiversity. Calculations have been carried out using the county's and DEFRA's biodiversity metrics. The council's parks team are confident that a net gain can be provided by a condition within the site. The council's sport and leisure services have requested contributions to sports within the borough. This is for the sum in the region of £640,000. Has been agreed with the developer and will be required to pay by the legal agreement. This will provide facilities within the area. In the planning balance, it's therefore considered that subject to conditions and contributions, the proposal can be made acceptable in terms of open space, protected species, biodiversity and ecology. In relation to noise, air quality and contamination, national policy states that new development should not affect the health and quality of life. A noise assessment has been submitted with the application, and the Council's environmental health team are confident that acceptable noise levels can be met by condition in relation to the dwellings. It is also considered that the level of noise can be mitigated within the open space by the use of a noise bund along the boundary with the A5. This approach is in line with the Calendar Farm site. It is recognised that the proposed development lies approximately 1.6 kilometres northeast of an air quality management area. The development will undoubtedly lead to an increase in traffic on the local roads, which may impact the air quality at existing residential properties. No air quality report has been submitted with the application, but the Council's environmental health team has not objected, but requested an air quality assessment before commencement of development. This information will then be used to offset the equivalent within the site via the provision of electric vehicle charging points at properties. The applicant's consultant has worked with the Council's environmental health officers and recommended the wording on the conditions. However, the wording is exactly the same as that recommended by the Institute of Air Quality Management, Principle of Good Practice, and within the Borough's Council guidance developed through a shared Coventry and Warwickshire supplementary planning document. This is considered to be an appropriate method, as no air quality mitigation schemes are currently agreed or costed out within the Borough. This method is also used through Coventry and Warwickshire. It is therefore considered that if refused on the grounds of air quality, that this would be difficult to support at appeal. In terms of any potential of contaminated land, the Council's environmental health officers have requested the standard contamination conditions. In relation to archaeology, the site is close to a Roman road and archaeological finds have been excavated in the area. Studies have been carried out, and the County Archaeology team have agreed that subject to an archaeological evaluation being carried out prior to development, they have no objection. Therefore, it's considered that archaeological issues can be met via conditions. Page 34 to 39 of your agenda details the 106 contributions requested on this application, and pretty much which is what I've just already gone over. The developer, as I say, has agreed to pay these 106 requests in full. The only difference from the agenda is that there was found to be an error in the spreadsheet calculation for the NHS/county request for the new primary medical healthcare facilities to be built in the area. The amended fee requested by county is in the region of £169,000, or worked out per dwelling is £845. And has been agreed by the applicant. In conclusion, it is considered that subject to the conditions as set out in the agenda and the addendum and a legal agreement, it is considered that the planning balance weighs heavily in support of the application, and that it is both consistent with local existing and emerging policy as well as national policy. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Conley. Thank you very much, Chair and Committee. The Borough Plan has this as countryside. It is still countryside and should still be protected as countryside. The Borough Plan has now established 15,000 maybe if Hawkesbury is included, sites for housing. So we do not need to add this if the Borough Plan goes ahead. And the only reason for going ahead with such a large number is because of the Coventry overflow thing. But that will go in the Borough Plan. The Borough Plan is already more than providing the required amount of housing. The planning inspector said this should not be a landscape buffer, but should be protected as countryside. And it is countryside. We have a massive issue also with connectivity. This north of the Nuneaton area has got 4,000 homes already approved. It could go up to 5,500. plus these extra sites that are being tacked on the side, these 3 connections for walking and cycling, are they protected? We've had a massive problem in the past with these foot and cycling connections because of ransom strips and the developer on the other side of the line not actually wanting to have a connection. So we need to protect those connections really importantly. Air quality, absolutely appalling that we are not asking for an air quality assessment until the houses are literally going to start to be built. This is outrageous, and if you allow this, it will be the same on every other planning application. The air quality in Bedworth and Nuneaton will be left as a last minute thing to be looked at the last minute. You cannot possibly say the mitigation is enough because electric car charging points do not reduce pollution until people have electric cars and a large amount of the fleet has changed over. We need to do an air quality assessment now. We need to do it before it has detailed planning application status. Otherwise, we cannot mitigate. We have things we need to do to make the air quality better. Then there's public safety. The bit of Higham Lane it's on is a 40 road where people accelerate to 50. So past the entrance here, it's a really long site, and everyone's going to go out onto Higham Lane. Narrow footpath going down Higham Lane, and so we need all these other routes put in place to actually give people a safe route somewhere. We need to drop the speed limit to 30, and we need a wide, 3 metre wide way onto the site. The site's only got a 2 metre entrance, and the bit down Higham Lane usually goes down to about 1 metre when the hedge is in full swing. We have so many issues with this, and this site would not be considered if the borough plan was on schedule. And even if the borough plan was adopted today, this site wouldn't be considered because the borough plan allocates plenty of the land. And if the borough plan isn't going ahead, then we haven't got the growth and the numbers to justify either. It's been cherry-picked to actually put this in the plan. That's my 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Constable. Is there any points of clarification? Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Chair. I'll step in. One of the things I wanted to specifically reference actually is in the pack of documents it states that there's an objection from Hinckley and Bosworth Council, but that there's no reference to what the material objection of that objection was in the information pack. Now I understand that they're actually the legal authority on the A5, and I believe it may actually relate to that specific point. One of the things that concerns me actually is the A5 stretch. As councillors will know, particularly the stretch between, I would suggest, the roundabout there with Higham Lane and up to the Dogwells Island roundabout is probably some of the most congested road, probably potentially around our borough, particularly at peak hours. And I know there is a lot of move to try and look to upgrade and secure upgrades to the A5 going forwards. My deep concern is by allowing application on the site here, you would constrain and potentially stop that development going forward and those potential road upgrades. As we know on the other side, on the more Hinckley side of the A5, there are already a lot of existing properties that would potentially head in that development and potential upgrades in. But one of the other things that I think is really important actually is access. From what I can see so far of the information provided, it seems that there will only be one access onto and out of the site. And for the number of homes, I would therefore question what is the additional and secondary access for emergency service, as that doesn't seem to be provided or clear at this stage in time. I also think there are some things that committee could do, as we've heard, in relation to what's coming out from the borough plan, and actually the fact that there's a consultation to go out, particularly on this stretch of land at the next stage, and therefore I think it would only be right that the committee defer until that such time as the response from that consultation has come back. Because how can we ask the public to consult on something which we've already predetermined as an application outlined here today? Finally, also something I'd like to look at is in the event the committee does decide to go forwards against my proposals this evening as outlined, I'd like to look at the Section 106 agreements. As members will know from full council, we've got particular issues with regards to Sandon Park and the facilities there going forward for potentially booting off 2 local existing football teams from the site. I see that here there's money allocated only if the site is not adopted by Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council for improvements to the changing facilities and access improvements at the Sandon Park site. And I'd look whether potentially through conditional amendment 106, whether if the committee were minded to progress it forward anyway, whether they would look to include that as a 106 contribution regardless. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any points of clarification? No? Ms. Wood.
Chair, members of Planning Committee, good afternoon and thank you for the opportunity to present to you. My name is Catherine Young and I act on behalf of the applicant, Richborough Estates, and the landowner. Both the landowner and Richborough Estates have long ties to the area and want to see a high quality scheme delivered which will benefit current and future generations. We have before you an outline planning application for up to 200 family homes. The scheme represents an ongoing dialogue since October 2017. We'd like to thank your officers and statutory consultees for their input, which we believe has resulted in positive changes to the scheme from a design and integration perspective. This includes ecological corridors through to the neighbouring Persimmon development, which will enhance the biodiversity offer in the area, an extensive area of public open space along the A5, which will also function as a landscape buffer, a housing mix which respects the council's SMART mix, including the provision of 25% affordable housing. This includes 2, 3 and 4 bedroom properties to meet all housing requirements. Provision of electric car charging points and a total financial contribution of circa £4 million to improve local schools, parks, highways improvements, including a voluntary payment of £89,500 towards cycling provision. From a deliverability perspective, it should be noted that there are no outstanding technical queries or objections. Warwickshire County Council Highway Authority and Highways England have both confirmed that there will be no highway safety impact as a result of this scheme. Your environmental health officers consider that the air quality matters can be suitably addressed through a subsequent application for reserved matters approval, and our client has worked with your officers to ensure that suitable conditions are applied to the Planning Commission. As recommended by Planning Practice Guidance, our client has worked with officers to agree proposed conditions prior to committee today. If you approve the application, the draft conditions, together with the parameters plan, which our client has prepared, will give the council certainty of what is proposed and how it will be controlled. Our client has a proven track record of delivering sites for housing. Our client is committed to helping the council meet its identified housing needs and has requested that the usual permission expiry time is reduced from 3 years to 2 years to help ensure the site begins to deliver in the immediate term. If permitted, our client anticipates an application for reserve matters approval being submitted in spring 2019 and will remain part of the process following the appointment of a development partner. Your officer confirms that the proposal will not materially harm the character and appearance of the area and that design will provide a good living environment. We therefore respectfully request that members support their officer's recommendation and approve the planning application.
Thank you. Just one moment. Are there any points of clarification? No? Okay, thank you. Jackie, anything you need to come back on at the moment?
I just wanted to clarify a few of the things that have been said, if that's okay.
Okay.
In terms of air quality, carrying out the assessment now wouldn't make as much of a difference in terms of where the mitigation will be provided, because we've got no policies that actually provides within the air quality management areas that we've got, so it would have to be within the site. Hence the reason why environmental health are happy that the air quality is carried out prior to the reserve matters and prior to development, so that we can mitigate within the actual site. It isn't just a case of electric capacity for cars within the site. There will also be the actual guidance actually states about cycling and networks within the area. That has already been covered elsewhere by parks and other legislation that we require and will be required within the site. In terms of public safety, highways haven't come back about the actual public footpath width within Higham Lane. They have no objection. It's out of the red line, so it's something that we couldn't control within the application. In terms of the objection from Hinckley and Bosworth Borough Council, the objection was really related to our emerging borough plan, as they saw it that it was in the buffer land. Obviously that has changed because of the inspector and is likely to change within the emerging borough plan. In relation to only having the one access, discussions have been ongoing since the application was set on the agenda. There is proposed an emergency access through the site, not shown on that plan. It's probably clearer on the plan on the actual board, but the provision within the actual cycle route across the plain open space will also be used as a dual emergency access in the event it's required, and this will also link through, where necessary, into the proposed layout. In relation to the 106 plain open space, saying that it would not be required for local parks if it wasn't adopted, that's not the actual case. The actual 106 agreement, or the fees for plain open space in the area, will be required regardless of whether the plain open space on the site is adopted or not. That is a given, that automatically comes. The actual finances is just because obviously if we take over the plain open space in the land, in the actual site, then it will cost us money to actually maintain that land. That's where the difference in fee comes. The actual plain open space provision off-site remains the same. I think that has covered all the points. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. In that case, to enable debate to take place, can I move the recommendation which is as printed to grant planning permission, but also with the additional amendments and extra permission on the addendum? Is that seconded? Seconded. Any member? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Before I go on to my comments, I have a question for the officers. You've answered some of the ones I had already, but are there any connections tied up by road, this development, to the other approved developments around it?
No, there aren't. It's because it's pretty much isolated. On the right-hand side, this area has been approved as open space and also for biodiversity land. There is a link road proposed within the Persimmon site, which will come along here. There will be, as I say, pedestrian and cycling provision into that, but in terms of cars you would have to go out onto the actual highway, onto Higham Lane.
So why aren't we requesting that they tie up?
Part of the provision with the Persimmon site is that that's going to be a phased development. So it's likely that the first part of the Persimmon site will be built out, which is the first phase at the front of Higham Lane. This is likely to be built out probably a lot quicker than that. So for a road to have to, from this site into Persimmon site, it wouldn't be ready in the Persimmon site quickly enough for this site to proceed. Highways haven't requested a secondary access, which is probably the most important part. They were happy with this sole access, providing there's an emergency access as well.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I understand the answers that you've given, but if I'm considering the outline stage and outline it only,
Yeah.
I hate it when they do this indicative drawing. And I hate it especially when they put play areas and walkways closest to the A5 as well. So when it comes back, I would hope that gets changed if it was approved tonight, because I would vote against it on that basis as well if that was there. But if I'm looking at outline only, it has to be whether I consider it to be sustainable.
Yeah.
Now, with all the other developments going on in that area, we are already massively changing the character of Wellington St Nicholas. I don't think it is sustainable to have a development of circa 200 houses which doesn't tie into the facilities and amenities easily of all the other 4,500 houses we're proposing to put in that neck of the woods. To me, that isn't sustainable, and it also isn't sustainable to have only one access into and out of 200 houses, particularly at that junction where you are very close to the Watling Street and Higham Lane, which is busy at the best of times. I think that isn't sustainable either. Now, I understand the answer you've given about how the timings won't coordinate between Persimmon and this development. My response would be, and what residents would say is, why should I care about that? Because I'm considering whether this is sustainable as a whole. It's your fault and the developer's fault, and the fact the council hasn't got a borough plan and a strategy in place that doesn't all tie up. Why are residents being made to suffer and we are ending up passing potentially bad planning? That's how it looks like to me, bad planning. And I'm sure that's what, if I was to go and knock on the doors on the areas around there, that's what they would say too. They might accept in the end that you've got to have these developments. A lot of them at the moment won't say that. But then, if they could see at least, if they can get to the other shops, the other schools, the other play facilities which are being proposed in and around that area, at least it starts to then mitigate the impact and harm you're having both to the existing residents and the new residents. So if I'm looking purely at outline and sustainability, to me that isn't sustainable, and I won't vote for that, because in essence we've got all timing mixed up on this because the council can't get its act in here over the borough plan, and it's residents who suffer. That's not good planning, isn't it?
Councillor Pomfrey.
Thank you. It's along similar lines. I'm not too concerned about road access. I mean, to me, it's probably a good thing that cars can't drive through housing developments to a great extent. What I've been looking at is the plan in the agenda on page 49, where it's got pedestrian cycle access down as indicative, which to me means it might be there in the end, or it might not. And I don't understand that we're just considering everything's reserved matter except access. I mean, it would concern me if people couldn't walk to school other than by going out and down Higham Lane, or get down to the shops on Higham Lane, other than again by going down Higham Lane on their bike. So I think having it only indicative and asking for approval is perhaps pushing it a bit. What does indicative actually mean? That's a question for the officers. Thank you,
Jackie?
Yeah. It's got to be indicative because, as I say, we're only looking at the actual access at the moment. We would certainly be looking at cycling across the site, and we worked with the applicant in terms of the actual cycling provision on this site. If I can refer you to condition 5, which states cycles, that details of the cycling routes are going to be provided. It also says on condition 26, it refers to the actual master plan and concept master plan. It refers to that in the condition as indicative plans, because we've found in the past where we've tied to specific master plans, then sometimes if there is a need for a change, it's made it difficult for us to get what we want in terms of, say, play in open space. We can't go back and then say, well, we want this, because it's already set out in the master plan. So we've learned from experience that we're putting master plans as indicative plans, but as I say, we will ensure via conditions that cycle routes are put on there. That's fundamental to good planning, and it's fundamental to obviously best practice.
So are the conditions in here which we're going to approve, which says that there has to be pedestrian and cycle access, even though where they will actually be is only indicative? I mean, what I wouldn't want us to do is approve a plan and then say, well, it was only indicative, so we won't have any.
Yeah. Can I go back, Joe? Yeah. So in terms of the reserved matters, we will be approving those at reserved matters. If those functions are on the plan, so we simply won't be approving reserved matters, so they'll have an outline and we won't be able to go anywhere. So we will ensure it, as I say, on reserved matters.
Right. So when it talks about access, it just means cars.
It's the principal and it's the car access, yes.
And reserved matters, I hope we're all going to remember this when the time comes, means that we've got to have a close look at where the footpaths and cyclepaths are.
I assure you, highways and parks will be looking at that very closely.
Okay, thank you.
It's a good point, because I share the concerns of many members about outline applications, and in some ways it was a lot simpler in the old days when we did have a line around a site with nothing inside it. That always came back. for the detail, but we get an indication of perhaps what they want, and you know, I think it was a lot simpler the other way, when we could really concentrate on the reserve when it came back for the detail. I take your point, and one I don't disagree with. Any other member?
Does that mean, Chairman, that we are only approving the parameter plan?
Yeah, the parameter
So
plan in
all
terms of
this
the
is
access.
Indicative, not final, not fixed, but there is a desire to achieve that. And the only thing we're approving is this access and the outline. I see.
And the number.
Right.
The numbers in the description.
Yes.
Okay, in that case, the recommendation is as printed, with the expiry of the consultation on the 24th. That we recommended to the Head of Development Control delegated authority to grant planning permission subject to a legal agreement and the conditions printed both within the report and on the addendum. All those in favour of that? Against? And abstentions? Anyway, regardless of the abstentions, that makes it for the recommendation, 4 against, so that's approved with my casting vote.